your book would reveal your statements. There are some very beautiful places you can access to go fly fishing at. And looks like we got a picture here of the Cottonwood Creek. Tell us about the Cottonwood Creek.
Well, Cottonwood Creek is a tributary to the Blackfoot. In my book, I use this as an example, not so much a destination like the Missouri book, but an example of a stream that goes through some pretty slower moving water where you can find beaver ponds, and it tends to collect quite a few trout. Trout in cold water really like to find those places where the water slows down, so they have a better chance to capture food.
Kind of like in these images here?
Yes, well, the one on the left, actually the one on the right, I'm showing the burn areas, which tend to put people off. They think, well, there's a fire, which we've had. I don't even know, I wouldn't even guess how many millions of acres that have burned in Montana in the last half dozen years. But it's got to be well over 4 million acres, and this year may not be better. But one of the things that happens during the fire, depending on what kind of fire it is, it can actually have a beneficial effect on the fishery. It can open up the sunlight to some of the insect life, which is what kickstarts the whole cycle for fly fishing anyway.
So tell us about your best year. If you were to go out and spend a full day fly fishing, how many catch and release? Do you catch and release, first of all?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So how many
I don't fish because I'm angry at fish. I don't fish because I'm hungry. I like the sport.
How many can you capture in one day?
Well, that depends. Really, I'm not a counter. I don't. It's really not relevant.
You catch that many.
Yeah, it's kind of like asking me how many girlfriends I had. You know, I remember the special ones, and the one that I have now is the most special.
Oh, well, tell us about that. Come on. We love the fishing stories, and I won't assume you're lying.
Okay. No, I mean, what I'm saying is the numbers really aren't
Right.
important because you're not doing it to feed the tribe.
Right.
You know, you're not bringing them back.
But everybody loves a good fishing story. Tell us about the biggest fish that you caught.
The biggest fish I caught was in 1969. I was in the Navy. We took a huge hook and hung it off the back of a 350-foot ship with 3 dead chickens on it.
Oh my gosh.
And we caught a 16.5-foot great white shark.
You're kidding me.
But that's not exactly catch and release fly fishing.
That's not fly fishing, but it is a very good story. So tell me a little bit about your guided fly fishing experience. How many years have you been a guide?
Well, I no longer guide.
Oh, okay.
I guided for about 10 years here in Montana. I enjoyed that experience very much, but I felt a need to move on to something else. So now I'm focusing on the writing, both articles. I do lecturing in the wintertime to fly fishing clubs and teach fly tying classes.
That's great. So what do non-resident anglers think of our state anglers? Is that how you say it?
Fly fishers, fly fishing anglers, yes. They especially somebody that comes from an urban environment. They come here and sometimes they're just totally blown away. They look at, our wildlife, the pristine parts of our state that fly fishing takes them to. And they're really just captivated by what we have here, what most of us pretty much take for granted. And there's a few that I think that have moved here just for the fly fishing or the outdoor stuff. I think most of us live here because we enjoy this kind of environment. But I think that's becoming rare. They find out the lack of job opportunities and that sort of thing, and that they're not going to go to work for a Hewlett-Packard and get 6-figure income. And all of a sudden it doesn't look quite as good.
Right.
But their initial reaction to our state in general, it's a wonderful place to visit.
Yes, indeed it is. So now tell me, fly fishing seems to be a fairly male-dominated sport.
Yes.
Is there any reason why females can't enjoy it just as much?
None at all. I can think of no physical characteristics that a male have that would make it easier for them. I mean, you're not talking about, lifting cinder blocks. You're talking about a fly rod that weighs a few ounces. So there's really no physical advantage to being male. And there's quite a few women who have gotten into the sport. I mean, there's some that have been with the sport for many, many years. That unless you're involved in it, you wouldn't know who they were. But there's absolutely no reason women can't get into the sport.
So rumor has it that you are not on the popular list of most outfitters because you're revealing a lot of secrets. What would your response to them be?
Well, when I guided, and what outfitters in the state and guides do is we take people for a fee. We take people to places they couldn't find on their own or would have difficulty finding on their own. And we teach them techniques to catch trout that they might not discover on their own or would have difficulties discovering on their own. So what I did as a guide really isn't that much different than what I'm doing now. I just do it for a broader audience. And so I think there are some, not all, but there's a small group of outfitters out there that think I'm giving away all the secrets that they normally sell to people. But really I'm not doing anything different than what they're doing.
Right.
I'm just doing it a little bit differently.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got into fly fishing. How old were you when you were introduced?
Well, I began fishing before I started school. I mean, I don't even know. It was my earliest, I don't remember a time in my life when I didn't fish.
So you've been fly fishing your entire life.
And that's a long time. I'm not like you. I'm not a mere embryo of a human. I've been around. This is all real gray hair. But when I was in the latter part of, I don't know what it's called now. We used to call it grammar school or elementary school. It's the same thing. Probably 7th or 8th grade, was the first time I saw someone fly fishing. And it looked so elegant, it looked so challenging for me. I immediately was intrigued. I just said, I have to learn how to do this. And I began doing it off and on for a number of years after that. Sometimes I would get frustrated and not because I wasn't doing it very well and I didn't have very good instruction, and I would go back to spin fishing and that sort of thing. And I did a number, even using live grasshoppers as my, which is really not done in most traditional fly fishing circles. But as a kid, that's really where I became introduced to it.
And so you learned this skill on your own, or?
Quite a bit of it, yes. Very badly, I might add. I was really bad at it because I didn't understand the physics of how to load a rod and how to cast without snapping a fly off. But I finally mastered some of that. It still was not a very good caster. I was good at sneaking up on fish. So I would just I didn't cast much. I would just kind of go up and hold the fly on the water, and it's called dabbing, and they would come up and take it.
So that's why the classes for most beginners would be important, to eliminate some of that frustration that naturally comes with beginning fly fishing.
Yes. There's a learning curve like any sport.
Right. And you